The White Pill is available now at whitepillbook.com. This episode is brought to you by Patriot Gold. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a very special returning guest, the man who was the second guest on this show, episode 2. You go way back, Scott Adams. He is the creator of Dilbert. His new book, which I am really excited about, is called Reframe Your Brain, the User Interface for Happiness and Success. You've also written How to Fail at Almost Everything and Still Win Big. ScottAdams.locals.com. You have your coffees where you talk about all sorts of issues of the day. You're also in the process of being canceled, which we're going to talk about to some extent. I am really interested in this book, and I'll give you a bit of background as to why, because I think that what this book is one of the most important concepts out there. You talk a lot about persuasion and communication, both how people miscommunicate what they're trying to say, or they're trying to get something past the goalie, as well as how to frame your language when you're communicating with others. You talk about this a lot. There was someone named Neil Strauss who was discovered by the same editor I was, Jeremy Ruby Strauss. And not only did he give him his first co-authoring gigs, but he told him to write The Game. And for people not familiar with this book, The Game is the book which kind of sets up this whole pickup artist culture, which is very unfairly maligned. But one of the points of this book, although it's framed in the concept of how to get women into bed, it's really about interpersonal communication and cues people give off, cues people pick up. And one of the most important concepts in that subculture is something called frame control, which is when you're talking to someone and they try to reframe the conversation as a dominance move or a way to be insulting or a way to be praising to you. If you're going to have any kind of online debate, frame control is one of the most important things. And you could see an attempt at this, though it's not always conscious, when people are like, hey, Scott, why are you such a jerk? Honest question, right? It's always coached in these terms, and it's really a way to, or how can you believe in anarchism when you're so clearly intelligent? That is another attempt to reframe the conversation. So I would really love to cede the floor to you and to discuss the genesis of this book and what you talk about in it.
So for the benefit of your audience, I'm a trained hypnotist. I learned hypnosis in my 20s, and that changes forever how you see everything. So hypnotists don't see rational people walking around doing rational stuff. We see irrational people who rationalize what they did after they did it. So in other words, we're just a voice in our head that tells you a story of why you did something, and you don't really know why. It was just cause and effect. I don't believe in free will, but that's another story. So from that and the understanding that people are irrational, one of the things that hypnotists knew, I think before the AI scientists knew it, is that the thing that you think is intelligence in a human being is really just combinations of words that they've heard in that combination before. And you can definitely tell that when you see political arguments, because 99% of the world is not really closely paying attention to politics, but they have heard something from someone they agree with, generally somebody on their team, and then if you ask them a question on that topic, they will repeat back those words. But it doesn't take you long, verbatim, right? And it won't take you long to figure out that they don't have much of a foundation to support the words. The words themselves were like a proxy, a kind of a pseudo-intelligence that they used as real intelligence. Now, when AI became a thing and the world was shocked that you could create this thing that was like intelligence out of nothing but the patterns of words that people have spoken before, that was like a brain exploding moment for a lot of society. But I think hypnotists, I haven't talked to too many of them, but I think we looked at it and said, well, what have I been saying for 100 years? That these patterns of words are your intelligence. So back to reframes. A reframe is a simple sentence that makes you look at a familiar situation in a new way. And ideally, if you pick the right reframe, it makes you look at it in a way that makes you more effective, happier, more successful, whatever it is that you want. So it turns out that just inserting words in a certain order into your head, in other words, just reading them on a page, and if it's a topic that matters to you, you might remember them, and you just sort of repeat the words without any effort whatsoever, and they become your new intelligence. Because most of the things we do are just word combination intelligence. And you can literally reprogram your brain, much like you would reprogram AI, by putting different words in the database that AI is learning from. It's as simple as that. So
Yeah,
thankfully, the good news is I wrote the book before AI broke and became a big thing, but it just so perfectly explained what I'm doing that it made my job easy.
Yeah, I often tell people that overwhelmingly engaging in arguments on social media is a waste of time because the person isn't necessarily crazy or stupid, but they're mindless. And you're effectively arguing with Siri because, again, it's not just that they're saying certain things, it's that they're saying things in a certain way because the person on the screen told them that. And if the person on the screen told them the exact opposite, they would have that view. And they also have this perpetual present where they won't see any kind of contradiction between having the opposing view last year, I'm not going to take Trump's vaccine, as opposed to now, if you don't take this vaccine, you should be read out of polite society. If you put them side by side, the example I use, it's like, well, on Married with Children, Ed O'Neill is Al Bundy, and on Modern Family, I forget his character's name, but on the one sense, it's the same person. The other sense, it's not the same person. But for them, each little moment in time is its own universe with no connection between them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't take much pushing to find out that nobody has a foundation for their thinking on political stuff. Now, there are very narrow areas where we are rational. For example, finding the fastest route to the grocery store. And
Right, yeah.
that's rational. But everything else that has any bit of gray area, any judgment, any unknowns, we just gravitate to whatever words fit together and are comfortable in our head.
I was really kind of delighted to see a specific frame that you use in here, which is an example I use all the time, and it's on page 68. One of my absolute favorite thinkers is Albert Camus, and he is regarded as an existentialist. He didn't not regard himself as an existentialist; he regarded himself as an absurdist. And he said that life is basically meaningless. But he didn't regard this as some sort of negative thing or something to despair about. What he regarded it as an enormous opportunity. And when I try to explain his thought, I point to it like this: there's at least two types of people. You come across a canvas in a wilderness and some paints, and one type of person is like, what is this doing here? This is stupid. And the other type of person be like, this is wonderful. I can paint this river, or I can paint my friend, or I can paint the sky, or I can paint something abstract. I can have this wonderful opportunity to imbue this meaning, and this is a great space for me to do it in. And you have that right here on page 68. For the usual framework, people say find yourself, but your reframe is author yourself. You are a blank canvas. You get to paint your life by changing your actions. If you want to become a kind person, do kind acts. I've given several talks on networking, and I say, when I know someone's in town, it's their birthday, and they have nothing to do, I take them out for dinner, and I do this for selfish reasons, and the whole room laughs. And I go, the guy who takes people out for their birthday is awesome. This could be you. There's nothing stopping you. All it's going to cost you is $30 for dinner. You're doing a objectively wonderful thing. That person will always remember it. You can pat yourself on the back correctly, but people don't think in these terms.
Yeah, the other frame that they often don't realize is that the value you get out of life is entirely what you put into it. So people don't just want to be your friend. You don't just meet somebody and say, hey, you look nice, let's be friends. It's usually a shared activity, or in your case, you created reciprocity, which is a natural instinct. You just did something nice. People like people who are nice to them, and that's the end of the story. Pretty much, we don't go deeper than that. There's some terrible people who are nice to me. I like them. you know, I, I'm not much interested in what they did with somebody else, or when I wasn't in the room. People are nice to me. I tend to like them. It's really that simple.
Are you familiar with I'm curious if you read Jonathan Haidt's work and what you think of it, because it seems to dovetail perfectly with what you're speaking about.
Give me a specific example.
Well, he wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, Why People Honestly Disagree with Politics. So I forget the subtitle, but the entirety of his work, he was I forget what his field is, business ethics or something like that. He ran these studies, and what he found is people make moral decisions, and then ex post facto they have rationalizations, and often they can't even articulate why. Like an example he uses is, let's suppose a brother and a sister have intercourse once and they use protection and they enjoy it, they never do it again. Would you regard this as morally wrong? And everyone immediately has an answer. But when he goes, okay, why? They're flummoxed, and often to the point where they have to rewrite the premise, which is, well, what if they have like kids who are deformed? And it's like, well, we know they don't because we have the entirety of the premise.
Right.
So he speaks exactly what you're saying, how we have this visceral moral reaction, but when you try to have any kind of rational, coherent reason, the brain falters.
Yeah, I think I learned maybe probably 40 years ago in hypnosis class that the brain, the rational part of the brain, doesn't even activate until the decision is made. And we've seen confirmations of that throughout time. It sounds like that's another one. So I guess I would be fully on board with that. We're a irrational species that rationalizes. And once you get that frame on life, all of the things that drive you crazy
Right.
just look different. It becomes amusing at a point. Here's one that I've been using a lot. Obviously I get trolled like crazy on the X platform. So I used to fight back, say, "Oh, you forgot this point," or maybe you didn't see the news, or here's a link. Never works. Never works. Instead, I
Right.
show instead I show sympathy, which is also a hypnotist trick. I'll explain. But I say, "Oh, I'm sorry that your team did this to you. That must be really terrible." And I just say you're having some kind of a situation here. So I won't enter their frame that they've said something reasonable. The moment you acknowledge that they might be in the reasonable domain, then you think you can reason them out of it, and nothing like that's possible. But the reaction I get when I change their frame to sympathy, and I just don't leave it, even if they interact some more, I just don't leave it. It completely disarms because they're sort of there for the fight, and they're sort of there because they have some idea about who I am. So it's not about the topic, it's not about anything. They're just sort of acting out on some feelings. So I just treat it like that. Oh, I'm sorry they did that to you. You sounds like you're having a bad day. The other,
I
by the way,
I'm
the
oh,
other
sorry.
one that works really well, and and I've used this successfully so many times, it's funny, especially in the morning. I say, "Morning drinking," just 2 words with a question mark. And you would be amazed how many people do not respond again. Because often when somebody looks like they're drunk, that's exactly what's going on. It's literally they're just drunk. And if you treat them like other people, you're just wasting your time.
I'm delighted to tell you that you're probably not aware of this, but you are doing what Jerry Seinfeld used to do with hecklers. Because when hecklers would heckle him, he'd be like, What's going on here? Like, what are you doing?" And, like, not I mean, saying it even more aggressively and heated. He'd be like, "Guys, are you okay? Like, what's happening here?" And they don't know what to do because their whole framework is, I'm going to put this guy in his place, or I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to steal the spotlight. And now the spotlight is on them, but not in a way where they're like combative and like it's Muhammad Ali versus his opponent. It's now you're on the couch and everyone there is, feeling bad for you because you've made a fool of yourself, and they feel good for Jerry because he's this nice guy feeling sympathy for someone who's ruining his show.
You remind me of my favorite mugging story. I used to live in San Francisco, so you get robbed a lot, in the streets. I got robbed twice as a bank teller. People put guns into your head. So that was my experience. But one day I got robbed by a street person who had this giant knife, like a, I don't know, Bowie knife, kitchen knife, big scary thing. And so I was waiting for a bus in a scary part of San Francisco, and the street person comes over and, give me your wallet. And I had recently been in hypnosis classes. So I think I was actually maybe even coming home from a hypnosis class. So I just refused to enter his frame. His frame is that
Right.
he's robbing me and I'm the victim. So I just started talking to him. And he kept trying to bring me back to the fact that he's robbing me, and I kept bringing it back to just a conversation, and he couldn't figure
What'd
out,
you say?
like, which way to go. I don't remember my exact words, but I just talked to
Okay.
him like I was talking to a person on the street, and he kept saying, "No, your wallet." And I was, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" And then a bus pulled up, and I got on it and left.
Yeah.
So that's how powerful a reframe is. Now I wouldn't use it on somebody who wasn't actually drunk like he was. I mean, it works better with somebody who's inebriated, but it's pretty powerful stuff.
Folks, you know, sleeping is a very important thing. Poor sleep can cause mood issues, poor mental health, lower productivity. I had a nightmare the other day and I woke up and my whole day was screwed. So I want to talk to you about Beam Dream. Today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder. It's their best selling healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. And they're available in delicious flavors like sea salt caramel, cinnamon cocoa, and chocolate peanut butter. Better sleep has never tasted better. And a recent clinical study revealed Dream helped 93% of users wake up feeling more refreshed, and 93% reported that Dream helped them get a more restful night's sleep. All you have to do is you mix Beam Dream into hot water or milk, you stir or froth it, and you enjoy it before bedtime. They sent me the little apparatus. It's really kind of fun. It takes me back to when I was a kid and you're making like Nestle Quick. It's really exciting. Find out why Forbes and New York Times are all talking about Beam and why it's trusted by the world's top athletes and business professionals and podcast hosts. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, here's what you got to do. You get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/malice. Use code malice at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/malice and use code malice for up to 40% off. This really helps you with insomnia, helps you get sleep, helps you stay asleep, and helps you get productive sleep, which we all need to get us through the day. Frankly, this show puts most people to sleep, but for the rest of you, there's Beam. Folks, I want to talk to you about Intera Skincare because I really like the story to this product and I just got some and I can't wait to try it. So their founder was a biochemical engineer. He was a former pharmaceutical industrial maven. He's an MMA guy and he often found skin problems after contact with the mats and sparring. So he tested over-the-counter stuff, he tested prescription stuff, and he found that most weren't as effective as they claimed. So he put himself to work and a few years later, Intera Skincare was born. I want to talk to you about their Folliton Hair Regrowth Serum, which is used for men and for women. One bottle lasts 2 to 3 months, and most importantly, no side effects, which is pretty common with some of those other products. They've got their Platinum Restore Serum, which is like Botox in a bottle, removes laugh, smile, and forehead lines clearly, promotes a firmer, more lifted, and plump expression line. They've got body oil, they've got firming serum, they've got Lux Cream, all sorts of stuff that'll help you look and feel your best. So why wait? Experience the magic of Intera Skincare today. Say hello to a more radiant you. All you have to do is go to interaskincare.com to explore their full range of products and start your journey to healthier skin and hair. Don't miss out on this incredible journey to transform your health regimen. Use promo code WELCOME for 10% off at checkout. That's WELCOME for 10% off at interaskincare.com, ENTERA. Sounds pretty good. Let's get back to the show. Speaking of Camus, one of his major essays is called The Myth of Sisyphus. And the legend of Sisyphus is he's condemned in hell to roll a rock up a hill for eternity. And at the last moment, the rock falls away and he has to keep doing it over and over again. And Camus' conclusion to this story is that we have to imagine that Sisyphus is happy. Having a comic strip for decades, I imagine, is a Sisyphean affair. You have to have output every single day. You have to have the punchline every single day. Creativity waxes and wanes like everything else. How did you manage to do? And I'm sure there were moments where you're like, I fucking hate this dog already. Like, I'm done. And this cat, like, get him out of here. Like a dog's supposed to last 13 years. My God, someone put a bullet in this thing. Like, how did you manage to do that?
Well, it was super hard. But first, I have to tell you
Okay.
that a lot of people don't know about Camus. He was so embarrassed by that rock situation that he's actually the inventor of camouflage. So nobody would even know he was involved with the rock at all. Now, that's just a little
Thanks, Dad.
historical thing for your audience in case they didn't know that camouflage. But to answer your question, I used
Oh, that's
to.
the Dilbert strip for today. You've got your punchline.
I got it. Uh, the answer is for maybe the last 10 or 15 years, absolutely hated my job because I
Okay.
had to write a comic that was appropriate for the newspaper sensibility. which goes all the
Yeah.
way to children because kids read newspapers. And if they're going to read a newspaper, they're going to read the comics. So it's almost targeted for children in the newspaper context. So that I found just painful, absolutely painful. And by the time I got canceled, I was looking for a way out because I had turned
Okay.
65. I had always planned that I would do what I call my own form of retirement, which is only doing things I want. They might make money, but I'm only going to do
Yep.
things I want. So immediately upon being canceled, I moved it into a subscription service on the Locals platform, and now it's also on Twitter by subscription. But I could do anything I wanted there. So suddenly, I didn't have to conform to not only a artificially constrained, set of things that are okay, but the newspaper industry was, I think, 40 years behind television and everybody else in terms of what was allowable. So suddenly I'm free. And every day that I've drawn it since then, because I've continued, there's never been a gap in it. I've loved writing. I'm reborn. It's like being, when the first day I started, except now I know how to do it. Right? When you first start, you're like, I don't even know how to do this. I'm just figuring it out. But now I know how to do it, and now I can do anything, any topic the way I want. Oh my God, is the quality of the comic better? The subscribers, I think 100% of them would say it's an entirely different product. It's way better than it used to be, and I wake up for that, and I feel good about that. So you're right on. It was torture. I often described it as if somebody told you your job for the rest of your life was just to eat ice cream, and you're like, I love
Mm,
ice
yeah.
cream. This is the
Yeah.
best job ever. Now you've got to eat 1 barrel a day. Right? And that's when I'll go get my camouflage and slip away.
Yeah, I love Cadbury cream eggs. I even own cadburycreameggs.com, and I was on my buddy Gino's show in hot water, and they're like, "Let's see how many Cadbury cream eggs you can eat in one sitting." And let me assure you, the marginal benefit is very, very small once you hit 3. At a certain point, I'm ready to turn in my family to the KGB because I can't have another one of these goddamn eggs. Um, a question I always had is I was a big Dick Tracy fan, Chester Gould. I thought it was just absolutely terrific stuff. Although towards the end he kind of went off the rails, and it's kind of funny in that regard. Comic strips are in some ways an anachronism. That they were born, in the 30s, preceding television and maybe mass media. How did they ever have an idea of how popular your strip was? Because there's no metric where, like, if you have 10, you're there with Hagar the Horrible or Marmaduke. You don't know which one people like and which one people don't.
Well, they do very, very unscientific polls, but
Okay.
newspapers, but knowing what's popular with your readers is not exactly what they needed. What they needed was to hit all the demographic groups. So even if
Oh,
let's say the Kathy comic, back when it was running, it was 4 young single women, and that was just a category that was not covered. So it was hugely popular within that group, and then the newspaper can attract those readers. So in newspapers, it's not about who's number one; it's about whether you satisfy the demographic, which is a reasonable business model. I think that was smart. So if, for example, you were, Garfield, kids and cat lovers,
right.
you're bringing in the kids. If you run Jumpstart, it's a African American creator, and so that's bringing in your black readers. So they pretty much played it that way, and that made sense. But in terms of popularity, I have a way of telling if something is popular, and
Okay.
also predicting whether it'll be a big hit in the future, and that is whether somebody extends your product. So if you make a product and the first thing somebody does is like, oh, this would be better if it had, an extension cord on it, and they build it themselves. Now that's a good product because somebody's like putting work into it. I knew that Dilbert would be a hit early on when people would email me and they say, I love your comic, but I especially like him when he's in the office because he wasn't always in the office in the beginning. And they said, so I've made a book of my own that is your comics that I've organized
Oh,
by topic, and I've photocopied it and I put it in a binder. So I made a book. And the first time I heard this, I thought, well, crazy guy, right? This
no,
is somebody.
that's so
But,
wonderful.
but hold on. And then I get
Okay.
another one, and then I
Oh,
got
wow.
another one. People were turning my product into a book because they wanted it in book form. So I finally, not the genius that I am, I said, "Hey, I've got an idea.
After 5 books, maybe this should be a book.
Hear me out on this. Maybe I should write a book." So the first book that was, not just the comic reprints was the Dilbert Principle, and it was number
Okay.
one book, all that summer. So the audience, the viewers, whatever, absolutely told me that this is a thing. Yeah, and that's a subset of, I don't know who said it first. Somebody famous said that you don't tell your audience what your product is; they tell you what your product is. You take a first try. I thought I was making a comic. They had a guy who had a job, but it wasn't really about that. And then people would email me and say, "Oh, I love it in the office. It's okay when he's home, but I love it in the office." So they told me it was an office comic strip. So then it became one. I turned it into one. So that's sort of classic why having an MBA and being a cartoonist works
Yeah.
together, because the business model tweaking is something you don't get if you're an artist and you just have a vision. I was more of a whore. If you're part whore and part artist, it works together commercially pretty well.
Uh, there's a lyric by this band called Metric, which is, "Choose the highest bidder." I told them to choose the highest bidder when they told me I was up for sale. So, yeah, it kinda speaks to that. Wait, so who's the demographic for Annie? Is it orphans and the millionaires who own them?
It's it's the very old readers who don't like
Oh,
change.
yeah,
That they will
yeah.
complain like crazy if you change something. Yeah, and also people who don't have eyeballs. A lot of people who know people
And dog lovers.
and dog lovers.
Um, let's speak a bit about your cancellation because one of the points I've been making recently, and sometimes talking to conservatives, just like any population, is like trying to jab toothpicks in your under your fingernails, because when you say something isn't as bad as it was before, what they hear is it's fine or it's not a problem, and it's like I'd rather have the flu than have cancer. I don't want the flu. I think the flu can often be dangerous, but this is not a difficult choice. But they hear that you don't think cancer is a problem, or you don't think food is a problem. I think if can you speak to what it was that you had said and what it is that people heard or were told that you had said?
Yeah. So context is everything. And
Yeah.
let me ask you this question and see if you could confirm that this is true from your own experience. I've been saying this for a while. There's no such thing as news about public figures that's true.
Oh yeah.
Yes or
I one of my lines is say everything they say is a lie. Every word they say is a lie, including and the.
Yeah. So, but the way that the people who don't follow the media are easily
Wait.
taken in,
Let me just finish my answer also because there's one more point,
huh?
and this speaks to what you're saying. If you read a play, a lot of times in the beginning of the play, it'll have cast of characters, and it'll say like Jane, a wealthy widow seeking love, Thomas, her young paramour. Anytime people look at this, don't take my word for it. When they bring a character onto the scene in a corporate news article, it will say Joe Rogan, comma, a podcaster known for his history of transphobic remarks, comma, Scott Adams, blah, the disgraced. They will immediately tell you from their personal perspective how you should feel about this person before they even finish the sentence. And once you spot that this is the technique, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the context is, and the way most of the political hoaxes are done, is that the person who gets canceled did a real thing. Let's say it's on video, or they wrote it, or there's an email. But nobody can imagine how that could be out of context. Like, so the
Right.
snippet is something you look at, you go, I don't know the whole story, but how in the world could I be wrong about this? I'm looking right at it. It's like really clear. And that's how the trick is done, because there are ways to manipulate it to its actual opposite. So let me tell you what I said, and then when you hear the context, see how you feel about it. So
Right.
what I said was I looked at a Rasmussen poll that said there was a very high percentage of Black Americans who had been asked the question, is it okay to be white? And an alarming number of people said no, or they weren't sure that they would say that it's okay. Like, alarming. Now, some people said, oh, the poll is not reliable or whatever. But the poll was just a jumping off point. It wasn't
Yeah.
important to the larger context. So I'm willing to say, well, maybe the poll was off, but it was directionally the same as what I was seeing in general. So it was a good launch point for the point. So what I said was, if that were true, and I said if that's true, then it would make black people a hate group because it would mean that they have very terrible feelings about people like me. And if that's true, you should get the hell away from them. Or I used a stronger word. And then that turned into Scott doesn't like black people. Now, here's the larger context.
Yeah.
Number one, I was trying to offend. If you don't get that part, everything's confusing. I was trying to be as offensive as possible to draw attention to the following point, which had been an ongoing theme in my live streams. You probably heard me say it. That in an environment in which you have DEI, ESG, and CRT, I think most of your viewers are going to know what those are, but there are
Yes, they
three
are. Yeah.
programs that would be either at the corporate level, universities, schools, etc., that have one thing in common. It's teaching a narrative that there are oppressed groups, specifically
Yes.
black people, and that there are oppressors. And that if you're in the oppressor class, you owe something in one way or another, you owe something to the oppressed. Now, if that's your situation and you find yourself in that situation, you should get the fuck away from that because that is a setup by design where you're going to lose. It's designed for you to lose, so you should get away.
Well, unless you're
Now,
black or you're the out group, in which
right,
case you're designed to win. Yeah.
right, you're designed to win. So the point is that what I was saying had almost nothing to do with being black. It had to do with
Right.
the poisoning of the race relations by a set of narratives that people are making money for in a variety of ways. People are writing books and giving training classes, and so it built up this entire industry that was about telling white people that they were part of the oppressor class. Now, obviously, there's no way in America or probably anywhere that you could go and get away from everybody, right? So it's not like a practical thing. People should have seen it as hyperbole, which it was, but it should have been seen if I'd been allowed to develop it in its full context. It's closer to tough love. If you're a black American, don't you want to know how I feel as a representative of the people who were part of this experiment with you? Don't you want to know how the so-called oppressor class feels? Because you're not really trying to talk yourself into something. Let's say if you're black, you're trying to get other people to have a better, more positive feeling. And these programs do the opposite by making white people think some version of, I was just minding my own business. And now you're
Yeah.
telling me I owe you something for something that happened with dead people long ago. Now, I do believe that systemic racism is real, and I think direct racism is real. But the thing I was shooting for was a productive reframe. So I was actually preparing for the launch of the book, and I wanted to get people used to the idea that reframes could change everything. And I thought, well, I'll take the biggest one. Like if you could reframe race relations, that would be the biggest win in America. And so here's my reframe. Every time somebody says the average of this group is not doing as well as the average of this group, they're fucking you. They are not your friend. Now, it did make sense to do all those analyses, and in the past, that was important. Yeah, it helped us get to where we are. But in 2013, the proper frame is the individual. If you show me any, let's just go with the theme. You showed me a young black individual who needs something he doesn't have. Could be advice, could be networking, could be contacts, could be a job, could be anything. I'm very interested in that, an individual. Tell me what you specifically need, and I'll help you get it, which I've done many, many times. Once you reach a certain level of success, you end up mentoring a lot of people, and a lot of them
Yep.
have been black in my case. So always open to it. I could give you, lots of testimonials. On an individual level, I'm all in. I'm absolutely against any kind of discrimination against individuals in the context of work, in the context of renting, making loans, social life, who you marry, who you hang out with, who your friends are, who's on your team. So, there's no wiggle room there. That just, you can't discriminate. It's not good for you. It's not good for them. It's not good for the system. There is one, however, one category where pretty much everybody discriminates and would agree it's a good thing to do, and that's self-defense. In the realm of self-defense or defending your family, pretty much everybody discriminates and they're not going to argue about it. They're not going to have the conversation. I'll give you an example. If you were going to hire a babysitter and you had a choice of let's say your coworker's 16-year-old daughter, and you know the coworker, and the coworker vouches for the daughter, or a 35-year-old single guy that you don't know too well. Now, you don't know either of them. Who do you pick? Well, if you're sane, you'll pick the 16-year-old girl because that's going to be safer for your family. Is it bigoted? Yes. Is it discriminatory? Yes. Two ways, both by age and by gender. So, there's a simple situation. But let me give you the more provocative one. You're walking down the street, and let's say it's a low-income neighborhood, and you don't live there. You don't know much about it. On one side of the street is a group of Asian American teenagers walking toward you, and the other side is a bunch of Black American teenagers walking toward you. It's a low-income neighborhood. You don't know anything about either group. Which side of the road do you go on? Don't even answer the question. Everybody makes self-defense and protection decisions based on bigotry and patterns. So the trouble is, we're not good at patterns. That's why we carry these patterns into things like employment and other places where they don't belong. But if you're protecting yourself, you should get out of any situation that feels dangerous to you, even if you're wrong, even if it's biased. That's the one place that no law is going to get to you. And if there is a law, you should ignore it because your self-protection doesn't answer to anybody else. Protecting your family does not answer to anybody else. There's no authority over you when you're doing that. There might be a law you broke, and you might have to answer for it, but morally, ethically, and in every common sense way, you owe nobody anything when it comes to self-defense. I think 100% of people agree with that, but it's uncomfortable when you try to think of it in terms of race relations.
Folks, you know how important it is to stay in good shape for achieving your goals, whether it's family, career, or just personal fun. And the most research-backed ingredients known to man are here for a better aging process. Our sponsor, Neurohacker, packs 7 most science-based senolytic ingredients into one formula called Qualia Senolytic. You could take it just 2 days a month for fast, noticeable benefits for a much better aging process. The formula is non-GMO. It's vegan, gluten-free, and the ingredients are meant to complement one another, factoring the combined effect of all ingredients together. It's also backed by a 100-day money-back guarantee. You have almost 3 months to try it, and then no financial risk, and you can decide for yourself. If you're in your late 20s or older, add Qualia Senolytic to your diet, and it can play a crucial role in combating negative aging symptoms. Go to neurohacker.com/malice for up to 50% off Qualia Senolytic. And as a listener of Your Welcome, use code MALICE at checkout for an extra 15% off your first purchase. That's neurohacker.com/malice to try Qualia Senolytic with code MALICE and start aging on your own terms. And I got to tell you, this is the kind of stuff that's big here in Austin, and I'm really plugged into that community, and I'm really excited to see what kind of stuff is coming down the pipe. Guys, I love fastgrowingtrees.com, period. They've got thousands of plants, thousands of shrubs, trees. They're curated for your unique climate and needs. Meyer lemons, evergreens, shade trees, everything in between. You don't got to wait in lines. You don't got to lug around the heavy plants. With fastgrowingtrees.com, you order online, and the plants come to your door in just a few days. I ordered one. They sent it. It's great. Easy. No green thumb, no problem. Their experts are just a Zoom, chat, or phone call away. Always available, eager to help. They can walk you through your entire garden to help solve problems you're having with plants and trees. Plus, Fast Growing Trees plant experts have specialized degrees and training to help troubleshoot from root to leaf. I love them. They sent me a cool tree. It grows. Everyone wins. Join almost 2 million Fast Growing Trees customers. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com/welcome. You get 15% off your order. Here's the other thing. They have a 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, so you know that everything will look great fresh out of the box. So all you people are like, oh, I don't know how to grow, I kill all the plants I have. Well, that's because you're not picking the right ones, and they can help you. You get 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/welcome. And they've got a lot of cool stuff that you're not going to find at your local big box store. Let's get back to the show. Why do you think CRT is so popular and fetishized with white women who it does not benefit apparently in any way?
Um, I really don't know. So I would only be like guessing with my total
Sure.
non-expertise. But it could be that they feel like they're not very strong in society themselves, and so they might feel some kinship with anybody who's also, not the dominant group in society according to them. Now, I think maybe what they've missed is that women are the dominant force in society
Right, of course,
at the
yeah.
moment, but maybe a lot don't feel that way. So maybe that, but I'm just guessing that's a deeper question. I don't really know.
Can you speak to what it is that people heard you saying, and what were the immediate consequences to that, and were you surprised by the reaction?
Yeah, I think they heard me say that I don't like black people or that black
Right.
people are dangerous or something, right? So, but there's nothing I said that depends on anybody's genetics. It's unrelated to that. It's about what you've been taught and how you've been taught to act, which is what the CRT, ESG, DEI stuff is about. So what happened was, and I'll never know exactly what conversations happened that I wasn't privy to, but
Sure.
I thought I was kind of safe because I had so many newspapers and I was published, and I thought I'm not going to get canceled everywhere, but I didn't know they could go for my choke points. So that if you get
Okay.
my publisher and my syndication company, I'm gone from the entire world, and that's what happened. I think the Washington Post went first. Now, imagine watching this story and not knowing that I've been one of the most vocal critics of the Washington Post for years about their news coverage being biased. At the same time, they were paying me. Now, that wasn't
Right.
going to last. I was I was very aware that that wasn't going to last. So getting canceled by the Washington Post, no surprise at all. The timing was a little bit of a surprise. But when the Washington Post cancels, that gives cover to everybody else.
Yes,
And,
exactly.
and by now, they all have DEI departments. So every DEI department who heard the news said to their boss, hey, we got to do this. And if you're the boss, you take the easy way out. You're like, okay, I
Yeah.
just have to get rid of one comic, and then I'm not a racist. Right. It's gone.
And everyone else is doing it, so why am I sticking my head out neck out for this guy? Yeah.
Right. So what happened was, I think it happened like on a Friday or something. Everything was happening, so I had the whole weekend to get canceled. And then by Monday, my publisher called me and said, "Well, we can't work with you." And then my book agent, even my book agent, canceled me. Said, "No,
Wait, can
can't
we
work
can
with
we
you."
talk about that phone call because I've always been curious. I'm glad you got a phone call instead of a terse email. Were they collegial? Were they apologetic? Were they go fuck yourself? Like, what was that call like?
Well, the only two calls I got were from my agent and from my syndication company, not from any newspapers. Um, so I didn't talk to the publisher directly. The agent, I would describe both of those conversations as um, not frightened, but shocked or disappointed or disbelief. That,
Okay.
that, that it was, you could tell there was a mix of what the hell is going on, but I have no choice.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was more like I have no choice, but I hate this. Right. So
Okay.
viscerally, everybody had exactly the reaction I hoped they would have, which is I
Right.
was trying to offend people deeply so that they would pay attention. And if you get the offense without the context and the reframe, it's pretty rugged. So they were taking it like I'd stuck a spear through their chest, and that wasn't wrong. I mean, it was meant to be provocative, and it was.
So, were you surprised by how pervasive and quickly this all happened?
Yes, because like I said, I didn't know that they could get my choke points and get them so quickly. So
Okay.
I guess I didn't know how developed the cancellation industry was. They got to the point where there probably was something like a DEI group in every newspaper. I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
my publisher for sure.
Oh, for sure.
And and if your job is to look for that stuff,
Yeah.
any offense, well, you're going to find it because that's your job. And the more you find, the more you're worth, I guess, because you found a lot of it. So yeah, the system guaranteed that one slip up and I was gone.
One of the points I try to make, as I was saying earlier about conservatives, is if this had been, in my opinion, 5 years ago, you'd be vanished from the internet, and that there would be no possibility of this book coming out, let alone selling any copies. The fact that can you talk a bit about how you're like, fine, you don't want it, the book's done, I'll just put it out myself. It seemed like there were a few hiccups, but they seem to be relatively minor. Can you talk about that process?
Well, first I have to say that I could not have been luckier. I have the luckiest cancellation of anybody who's ever been canceled because I was looking to retire, and I'd also built up my following on the locals platform. So I had, a little bit of a side income if I needed it. So not only did I get my rights back for my comic, which was sensational, I got all my rights back. I got all my rights back for my books from that publisher,
Wait,
which,
hold on, hold on, hold on. Are you serious? So basically they're like, "Here, we don't want Dilbert, you could have him." You're like, "Okay." Like, this is a multi-million dollar property. They just handed him over to you?
oh, it's better than that. I got to keep the advance for the book.
No.
I kept the advance. And
Holy
and
crap.
and
And the
and
and and the agent quit too? That's
and,
amazing.
and the agent quit. So I don't have to pay the agent. I don't have to pay the agent. I don't have to pay the publisher. Now I am working with Joshua Lysek, so he's helped me, and is helping through the final edits of the book.
Sure.
Needed one more edit, a few more passes, and then walked me through the independent publishing, let's say, process, which is now fairly mature, but what a
Yeah.
pain in the ass. Like if Joshua had not walked me through it the whole way, it would I think I would have been stopped by it. But it works. I mean, you can get there. So the book is available in all its forms on Amazon and other places. And um, I got all of my creative juices back. I got all of
Yeah.
my rights back, which I never imagined was even possible. And I get to start over. It's really it just couldn't have been better. It just absolutely could not have been better.
I've been hanging out with Roseanne Barr, and one of the points she made is when she got canceled for that tweet, one of the things that concerned her the most was that this is someone who's fought against bigotry all her life, very, very publicly, very sticking her neck out. And she was just concerned that friends of hers or colleagues with her of hers would believe this nonsense and would perceive her as a bigot. And that did not happen. Thankfully, Monique was just on her show, defending her. Um, did you have to deal with that repercussions from colleagues or friends who are now perceiving you as some sort of white supremacist? Isn't your wife Asian, by the way?
My wife? No,
Yeah.
I'm not married.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're okay. I thought you were with an Asian woman. Anyway, point being, but she was concerned that people would perceive her, as a bigot. Is that something that you were concerned about? Is that something that happened?
Well, here's the benefit of having been associated with Trump in the 2016
Oh
cycle.
yeah, you're right.
Um, I didn't have any friends left.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That problem that
No,
resolved itself.
no, I've exaggerated a little bit. I would say that my total friend network was down, 90 to 95%. But
Wow.
also because my last wife, I'm divorced now, but my last wife,
Okay.
wasn't big on, entertaining and parties. So we just lived a, quiet little life. And so I got divorced, and then soon after got canceled. So I it just completely eliminated the landscape of, my social interactions. So maybe 5 or 10%, hung in there. But of the 5 or 10%, only one person said they chose not to spend time with me.
Okay.
And it's really easy to say "fuck you" in those situations. Even if you have a lifetime of friendship, uh, if you let me go that easily,
Yeah.
I'm very much done with you. Yeah, you don't we don't need to work this out. So I have
Yeah,
no problem.
what's even I think what's worse, I would think, is worse than people perceiving you as a bigot is people who don't, but are like, "You know what? You're too radioactive for me to be associated with." In which case, it's like, "What kind of person are you?"
Yeah, yeah. No, well, I understand people, protecting themselves. So like I said, when it comes to self-defense, I
Yeah,
don't,
sure.
I just don't question their judgment. So if that's what you needed to protect yourself, it doesn't matter if I disagree. That's your absolute right, and you can have it.
One of the things that you spoke a lot about in the 2015, 2016 campaign is what you call Trump like a master communicator. Is it fair to say that you, perceive Joe Biden in the same way? And Kamala Harris?
All right. So here's my current take. Wh-
Is that a
When
yes?
Trump and Biden were running the first time, I was making a lot of noise about, Biden's clearly too old. He's already at the point where you could predict that the next 4 years are not going to be good for him. Well, here we are, and,
Yeah.
and we're and we're so here, and I'm so right, about what I said then. I'm so right that honestly, this isn't good for the country, but I want to ride it a little longer.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Right. Now, I know you understand. I'm not sure I can
Yes.
explain this to everybody, but if you have a certain sense of humor, watching Trump run against Biden, I don't think I can enjoy anything more than that. I don't know where it'll go, but clearly, the fact the, the fact that Kamala Harris is the backup plan,
I know, it's
which
so great.
absolutely panics everybody. How could this be better from a humorous perspective? Well, let me tell you. Let me tell you. If this is going to go the way of a movie of three acts, I like to use that as my predictor.
Yeah,
There are a couple of things that might happen. One, I saw, and by the way, I'm not saying these will happen. This would just
sure.
be what would happen to make the movie good. A surprise finding that the election was in fact rigged,
Oh
like
gosh, yeah.
right before election day. Now, is it possible? Absolutely. It's absolutely possible. There's some things brewing that I would not yet put any credibility on, but in the movie sense, it's possible.
Yeah,
The,
yeah.
the other one that I just was laughing all morning about is there's some studies that looked at the causality, the direction of causality between warming and CO2. And of course, the theory is CO2 causes warming, but some researchers looked at everything they could look at, and they found out that the CO2 seems to follow the warming,
Oh,
not the other direction.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
like all scientific things, it's no better than a coin flip, no matter how credible it looks, right? When it's new, it takes a while to find out what really is real. But suppose that turned out to be something other scientists said, I guess we got this backwards. Now, how amazing would that be for Trump to run for election after climate change is found to be a hoax and the election is proven to be rigged? Now, I'm not predicting it. This is not a prediction. I'm just saying that the movie requires it. Whether it happens, I don't know. It's out of my hands.
Well, I just think it would be absolutely hilarious. I can think of one thing that would be funnier, and I'm confident you'll agree, which is convict Donald Trump running against Officer President Harris for the White House, and the conservative side with the criminal over the cop.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me add to this, there has to be one scene in the movie where Trump is behind bars and president at the
Yes.
same time.
No, the oath of office.
Yeah. And then
And then they have the pardon ready for him, and he signs it.
he signs the pardon, they unlock it, and he walks out of the jail, president of the United States.
Directly somehow into the Oval Office. It's next
Right,
door
directly
somehow,
to
yeah.
the helicopter's waiting there. And then and then he wears his orange jumpsuit into the Oval Office. I don't know. I'm just trying to gild the lily now, but it's a good movie.
Hey folks, did you know that traditional bed sheets can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat and it can lead to acne, allergies, stuffy noses, and is gross? Miracle Made offers a whole line of self cleaning, eco friendly bedding such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent 99% of bacteria and require 3 times less laundry. They use silver infused fabrics inspired by NASA. They're thermoregulating and they're designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long. That means you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than bed sheets used by some five-star hotels. Stop sleeping in bacteria. It can clog your pores. It can cause breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. Go to trymiracle.com/malice to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you save over 40%. And if you use our code Malice at checkout, you get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you aren't 100% satisfied, you get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/malice. Use code Malice. Get your free 3-piece towel set. Save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/malice to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode. Folks, the U.S. debt crisis could ignite a long-term rally in gold. Since March 2020, the U.S. has added $8 trillion in debt, and gold is up 50%. Now, with the Fed raising rates, the interest payment on our debt has surpassed $1 trillion a year. BRICS nations met last week, and oil-rich nations Saudi Arabia and the UAE have joined Russia, China, and India. And another credit rating agency, S&P, downgraded multiple U.S. banks on liquidity worries. 51% of Americans can't pay their credit card bills, which just surpassed $1 trillion for the first time ever. If this is Bidenomics, increased spending and regulation, it's only going to get worse. Buying gold and silver is a defensive strategy when you don't trust elected officials in Washington, D.C. to have your best interest at heart. So, what should you do? You should call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention me, Michael Malice, and you'll always get best in class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. The Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. All you have to do is call 888-505-9845 to get a free investor guide, or even easier, go to malicegold.com. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. So call 888-505-9845 or go to malicegold.com. Protect your assets against inflation today. Let's get back to the show. What do you foresee? I mean, we're very early out. It's September, obviously, 2023. The election's a year away. Do you still perceive Trump as a master communicator?
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
And he proved it again when he made everybody mad about abortion. I don't know if you caught that when he did the
I did.
interview with Meet the Press. So the way the conservatives spun it is he's not as hardcore against abortion as we are. But you missed his magic because he's not running just to be president of half the country. He's running to be the whole president. And so he said, I'm going to get people together and we're going to negotiate, some compromise, and everybody's going to love it and they'll love me for it or something like that. Now, of course, nobody's going to be happy at the end, no matter what it is, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the fact that he would make that absurd claim is what he always does. So it makes you
Right.
think past the negotiation to the settlement. So your brain is already on the settlement and whether you're going to like it. Now that is persuasion. But the other thing he did is, and he hasn't said it as clearly as I want him to, but I think he will. Here's the way I would say it. You do not want the President of the United States to make a healthcare decision for any of you individually, and you don't want the President of the United States to tell you what his morality is when you have a life and death decision. That's you. You don't want your president making those decisions. Now that is a strong president statement, as long as the states can make their laws the way they want. He's got to announce that you still get the laws, and it's going to be the laws that you want because it's in your state or the majority want. And so there's no way to win on abortion, but he did the best you can do, which is make people focus on the process and not him. And that's brilliant because everything's a losing play with abortion in terms of politics. But that's as strong as you can get and still be smart, still be reasonable, and not piss off half of the country for no reason.
I have to thank you because you've influenced me personally a lot on one specific issue, which is I'm a big advocate of national divorce. And a lot of times people come at me on Twitter and they'd be like, this is ridiculous. It's never going to happen. Something to that effect. It's crazy. And I'll make some comment. They'll be like, well, how would this work? You currently have blue cities and red states, or who would get the nukes? And I go, within 10 minutes, you've gone from this can never happen to trying to work out the details. My work here is done. And, and I just walk away because it's like if you this is a very classic car salesman trick. If you're
uh,
arguing about the radio or the call of the car, I
uh,
made the sale. Now we're just
uh,
working out the details.
right. Yeah, that's perfect. Good example.
Um, are you black pilled or white pilled about the future of America? Meaning, do you think it's a lost cause, or do you think there's hope for an America such that you would find aspirational to still be put into place?
I'll tell you. Let me give you the ultimate optimism. I call this the Adams law of slow moving disasters.
Okay.
So America in particular is really, really good at taking care of huge crises when we can see them coming from a long way away.
Yeah.
So for example, we're going to run out of oil. Well, we developed fracking. We're going to run out of food. Well, our fertilizer is really good now. We're going to Population is going to grow. Well, we figured it out. Year 2000 bug is going to make all the computers. Well, they didn't. Nuclear war. Well, we figured out a way not to have one. So every time we've got lots of time, we are freaking amazing at solving problems. It's only something like a pandemic where you don't see it coming and suddenly you're in it. Then we scramble. We're not good at that at all. But we did the best we could. Um, so the first thing is that all those big problems like climate change, the Adams law of slow moving disasters, which I think it is batting 1,000 forever because we're still here, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
and these aren't even the big problems. If you go back any time in history, those are big problems. We've got smaller ones than that, I think. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that Americans in particular are born to bitch about what's wrong, but be amazing at fixing it, especially
Yeah.
with the free market. So what I expect with climate change is that all the models don't really tell you the future because nobody can tell you the future. But we'll probably develop, all kinds of technologies. Every day there's a story about a new breakthrough. They'll change the battery life, by 50%. Some number of those will actually happen. So I would never bet against the United States if it's still operating freely. The
Okay.
thing that would stop us is if the United States can't operate freely, the free market breaks, which could happen from maybe interest rates getting too high or too much censorship and everything gets, just blocked up and we just fight each other. So it could happen. But if you ask me to bet on the United States um, problem solving abilities, I'm going to bet on that every time. So I think we'll be fine, but we might have a rough patch.
How does it make you feel that you've become kind of a meme that whenever there's like black crime or something like that, people post a picture of you raising your eyebrow and drinking from your coffee mug?
Well, I'm not built like other people.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah.
So at no point in my cancellation did I ever feel embarrassed. Like it never
Okay.
happened. I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel anger. I just thought, whoa, new situation. I just got respawned into a new video game, but what
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
have to work with? And I look around and what I have to work with is I'm already rich, I'm healthy, like everything's
Yeah.
good. I'll just start from here. And that's what was your question? I think I veered from your question.
How do you feel about that you've become this meme when people are as a shorthand for kind of racism?
Honestly, I laugh at it the same way other people do. When I
Okay.
see it, I go, oh, that's funny. And I actually just laugh. I don't have any other feeling about it.
Um, a friend of mine had their birthday last week. They turned 30. And the point I always make to kids, and it's impossible for them to process, for young males at least, is your life is a lot better in your 30s than in your 20s. Now that you're a senior citizen, can you walk us through what each decade of an average person, so maybe men you could probably speak to obviously a lot better than women. Like when does it get better? When does it get worse? For me, the worst thing about being in my 40s is this is when people start dying. And they die young, but people who are dying, and it's hard. You know what I mean? It's just like you get that call, and it's like, oh, that sucks.
Imagine being the healthiest 66-year-old
Yeah,
you know. Do you know how many people I'm going to watch die? Thousands.
yeah,
Like, how many people do you know? Like, you probably
right.
know 1,000 people, right, by name. And, I'm going to outlive most of them. So that's going to be weird watching them drop. So yes, on that point, I'll tell you, my 20s was terrible because it's all skill building and
Yeah.
suffering. Like you're trying to turn yourself into something for the rest of your life. So that's just a struggle for me. And because I wasn't like a natural, popular with the ladies, if I didn't have anything going on in my life, it was just me. It's not much to sell. So I didn't do too well, but my 30s, things looked up relationship wise and career wise. That's when Dilbert started. So I'm a special case because, Dilbert changed my
Sure.
trajectory. But my experience is that every decade was substantially better than the one before. And nobody's going to believe that, but including my 60s. Now,
Okay.
nobody's going to believe it, but it has everything to do with the fact that I maintained my health. A
Yeah.
lifelong gym guy, and mostly vegetarian until recently, pescatarian now. But I did what the experts say you should do, which is take care of yourself early and really pay attention to it, and then you get some good years in your retirement. So I wanted to make sure I had some good retirement years, and so far so good.
The perception is that comic strip artists are it's a very solitary profession, and I'm sure that's largely true. Do you have like any friends who are like do you know Jim Davis or the Marmaduke guy? Do any of you guys interact at all? Is there some secret like Substack or some Facebook group that you're all like chatting in?
So it's funny you ask because cartoonists do tend to be, let's say, introverts. Not all of them,
Yeah.
but many introverts. But they have an annual event that's like the Oscars for cartoonists.
Oh,
It's called the
okay.
Rubens, and it's torture. Like, because you're in a room with all people who want to talk to you, especially if you're a notable cartoonist. Everyone wants to talk. So it's just terrible. But to answer your question, I've met a lot of the cartoonists, usually through that, and I've asked advice from other cartoonists. So I've talked to Jim Davis a few times on business stuff. He's very good with business, by the way. I think that was his major in college, was business. It's not an accident that Garfield is a commercial monster. It's because a business guy created it. He just also was an artist. Um, yeah, I'll tell you a quick story when I first started. But the lettering wasn't going well, and I wanted to hire somebody just to do the lettering. But where do you find somebody, and how much would you pay them? And so somebody said, "Well, I think Gary Trudeau has an artist. You should call him." Now, at the time, he was, like one of the top cartoonists of all time, and I was just getting into the business. So you can imagine, I'm not going to call just out of the blue. Somebody gave me his phone number. Somebody knew him. So I thought, well, if I call him, he's not going to answer the phone. I'll get some assistant. So I'm like, okay, I could do that. And so I call up, and he goes, "Hello, this is Gary." And I was
Oh,
like, now what do I do? I'm not sure where this is supposed to go now. And I said, I didn't really think you'd be answering the phone, but he was very nice, and I asked my questions. And years later, I ran into him at one of the Rubens, and he introduced himself, and I don't think he even remembered I called him, but he was very nice.
What's up, guys? I'm Brendan Schaub. If you love everything mixed martial arts, I'm talking UFC breakdowns, UFC picks, one championship picks, Bellator, PFL, you name it, your boy breaks it all down. Tune into The Schaub Show, available every Monday wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Schaub Show. Enjoy.
let's get back to the show. Are you so this I mean this is the other thing, like I think it's very important to stress to people because I think so much of social media, especially right of center social media, is about your life's going to be ruined, you're constantly under attack, there's no opportunities. I mean, the fact that this book is out there and exists with pretty minimal work on your part, relatively speaking, certainly compared to 5 years ago, I think just speaks to the capacity now of different venues to circumvent mass cancellation efforts. Although it's
Yeah,
certainly not ideal, it's certainly improved, in my opinion.
yeah. So I'm on Rumble now. I'm on YouTube. YouTube demonetizes me now and then, but they haven't been too bad lately. So I could have a book. I could be a local subscription. Twitter gives me subscription fees, and then now that Musk is paying just for interaction on your Twitter account, I have that as a source of revenue as well. So I got out of a business where the revenue could only go down. Newspapers.
Yeah.
There weren't going to be more newspapers, and I
Right. Yeah.
entered
Yeah.
a business where there's unlimited upside. I can sell as many books and subscriptions as there are people who care.
Do you think Elon? How do you compare Elon's Twitter versus to the previous regime?
It's so much better. Now, I'm sure people have different experiences, so maybe some
Sure.
people have a worse experience. Um, the fact that it pays, I mean, is just
Yeah.
crazy. Because I would spend so much time there, and I would tell myself, "Why am I doing this? I'm not getting paid." I mean, directly, it was good for building up an audience. But he solved that for me. I would say that the community notes is maybe the
Oh
greatest
God, I know it's the greatest invention since the airplane, in my
So,
opinion.
so the other day, Musk himself tweeted a newspaper image, a headline, in which the Las Vegas guy who got killed intentionally by the people in the car when he was on his bike, he referred to it as a bike crash. And,
Yeah.
and I was one of the people who said, outrage. How can they not say what this really is? Well, later it turned out that was just their first take because the newspaper didn't know what happened. That was just the
Oh,
first take.
okay.
No. And they quickly updated it to, intentional, blah, blah, exactly like you'd want to see it. So Musk tweets it, not knowing that there was a reason why that was just the early take, and Community Notes comes in and fact checks the boss,
That's great.
and has stayed there. Is stayed there. That's
That's
all I
great.
want. That's all I want. You can't get more credible than that, or a system that works as quickly and adds the context as that. I tweeted before I got on that the only place you can find context for the news is on X. There is
Yes.
no other place. And you can name all these other, video or print. There's nowhere else you can even get a taste for the full context of a story except on X. And that you have to
And
work
there's
a little. You might have to
and
look at comments and stuff, but it's there.
sure. There's a world difference between, this is we gotta get the story out. This is just the little bit of information we have, and we've updated to we're intentionally suppressing this information because it conflicts with our narrative. These are two entirely different worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to look back at this era and just jaws will drop. Like it will look just crazy, the amount of suppression. But I think now the biggest change I'm seeing, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but we can see all the gears of the machine now. So like
Yes.
we can look at a group that's like a watchdog group, and we can know that they're not really genuine. It's Democrat money, for example. We can look at a fact checker, and we know that they're not real. We can look at the people moving from government to these entities and back, and we can know largely there are enough people now who know where the CIA has a lot of influence and
Yeah.
over which journalists and which publications. So I'm actually putting together a list of I won't, don't ask me to name the names right now, but the list of people who I call the designated liars, which
Yeah,
are
yeah.
different from the people who just have a take or they're biased. That's not that.
Right. Which we all have.
Right. When they send out Adam Schiff, it's because they
Right.
know they're lying. Right.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in the Senate and in Congress. Think of all the people you don't see. And I think
Right.
it's because they're not willing to tell the big lie, but they don't mind that one of their people do. So
Yeah.
once you learn which ones are just people who have a different opinion or they're selling their team, that's one thing. But once you realize who the designated liars are, and there are about a dozen of them, you see them every time. As soon as there's a big lie, they trot out the designated liars, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Well, this kind of speaks to this recent controversy with the ADL. You know, I'm Jewish, and when Elon criticized the ADL, and you have these reporters saying, "Oh, Elon, by criticizing Elon, the ADL, Elon is going after the Jews." It's like the idea that they are going to equate this kind of group with an agenda with all Jews is so disingenuous and shameless. But they do it brazenly and without missing a beat. That there's no way these people believe this.
The ADL, when I got canceled, the ADL, the head of the ADL, Jonathan Greenblatt, publicly declared that I was a Holocaust denier. Now, just to hold that in your head for a moment. That's a real thing that happened this year. The head of the ADL labeled me a Holocaust denier in public on Twitter, on X.
With no
Now,
with no consequences.
with no consequences. Now, when I've spoken about this a few times as I have, I don't defend myself because I don't need to. There's nobody in the world who thinks that's true.
Right.
Like, how in the
Including him.
world,
Including
including,
him.
of course, including him, right? But did it matter? No, it only mattered that he's a Democrat, operative, essentially, and that I'm a good communicator for a point of view he doesn't want to see anymore.
Can you speak briefly to if you watch the Republican debate and just a little bit about the communication skills from your perspective of each of the candidates up there, except for Doug, which we don't have to worry about? I was on. Let me just tell you, I was on the after show with Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson, and Glenn Greenwald, and Jordan was talking about how great podcasts are, and you could, instead of having these sound bites, you get to know the candidate intimately. He goes, "Oh, and I think I'm going to talk to all of them. They're going to come down sit with me." I go, "Even Doug?" He goes, "Oh, well, we'll see." And I go, "Yeah, I know what that means." It's this Doug guy. It's like it's like the movie King Ralph. It's like someone just won the lottery, and there's Nikki Haley, there's the vice president, and Doug's here. Hey guys.
Yeah, it was like in tennis where the people in the tennis tournament are the ones who earned their way in, but the tournament gets to add a few people on their own, the lower ranked people. It felt like that a little bit. Yeah. Well, all right. So Vivek Ramaswamy, who I'm publicly endorsing, uh, has the communication skills that we've almost never seen. I mean, just insane. Um, and RFK Jr. is almost as good. Like he's right in that domain. One of the best reframers you've ever seen. So Nikki Haley was great, but I think she speaks better to women.
Yeah.
When I was watching it, my brain was not picking her as one of the winners. But as soon as it went to any of the commentary, you saw the women light up when they talked about her. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to ignore that reaction. So I'm going to have to say that I miss what it is she's doing because I wasn't spotting great communication, but she was hitting the spot. So, objectively speaking, she must be very good. Um, Pence, I've always thought that Pence was a great vice president because he didn't cause trouble. And he was reasonably, talented that if something happened, he could take over and I wouldn't be too worried about it. So I think he's actually one of the all-time great vice presidents, but he's not killing it as a presidential candidate. His communication just isn't lighting me up at all. Who else was up there? I guess that answers
Asa
your
Hutchinson.
question. Hutchinson's the poor man's Pence.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
you don't need two of them. Make a decision, right? It's just one of those. They're the same person.
And
Who
Chris
else?
Christie.
Oh,
Chris Christie is the last one.
Well, Chris Christie, of course, is always interesting, right?
Yeah.
So he's got that going for him. But I don't think people are buying his act, and I don't think anybody's buying that he's really expecting to be president or making a shot at it. He gives off the impression that he's there to say bad things about Trump, and maybe he's got some DeSantis supporters behind him or something. So I don't know what's going on there, but I don't take him as seriously as most of the candidates.
And DeSantis.
I forgot he was there.
Yeah. That says something, huh?
That's my whole comment.
Yeah, which is
I literally forgot. I'm not kidding. I literally forgot.
I have not seen. I talked about this a couple of episodes ago. I have not seen any campaign blow their whatever you call it, or goodwill, lead as badly as him as quickly. And when they complain that Trump's on TV lying about him, it's like you knew who you were going up against. There's no like what Trump is. This guy accused Ted Cruz's dad of shooting JFK. You knew what you're getting yourself into. So you don't hide behind like, can you believe what outrageous stuff Donald Trump is saying, especially as a Republican candidate? That's ridiculous to me.
Yeah. Yeah, something happened between the time that DeSantis was just doing his governor stuff and when he started running. Did you notice that when he was governor, on almost a weekly basis, there would be like a new political stunt that was just
Yeah,
perfect. It was just
yeah,
perfect for his base. And then that all stopped. Now, of course, he may not be able to do the stunts as easily when he's, on the campaign trail, but you would think that he would still have like once a week a provocative, visual, something very visual, like the
yeah.
busing. When you put the migrants on the bus, you got a bus. All right, that's as visual as you can get. That's good persuasion. But he lost it all. And about the same time, you saw some people turn on him. I think Mike Cernovich sort of lost his interest. It feels like he lost his best advisors
Yeah.
because I don't think he was the mastermind behind all those little very clever, acts he did against Disney and whatever. And it's like somebody bailed out. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, that actually would be the only thing that kind of makes sense because otherwise I don't have any even hypothesis as to how it could have gone so much from like, oh my God, this guy's Trump without the drama. This is amazing to being caricatured as Jeb Bush and have no pushback against this. It's even though he has been running, feeding red meat to his base for at least a couple of years. It's
Yeah.
just it's just shocking to me.
But the good news is you could go pretty far down in the Republican candidates, and I'd be happy with all of them as president. Yeah.
Uh,
And even RFK, even though I don't RFK Jr., even though I don't agree with him on policy, I would feel confident he was actually on the side of America, and that he's smart and he won't do dumb things. Yeah. So we have the best, I think, the best candidates I've ever seen. But the final two are probably going to be Trump and Biden. So
My favorite politician at the moment is John Fetterman. I donated money to his campaign, and it's been the best ROI I've ever seen in my life. It's not even a question. And he just slapped down DeSantis. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, where he goes, he campaigns like how I dress. I'm like, this is just glorious, glorious stuff.
yeah, apparently he's decided that he's going to be that real biting, naughty attack guy.
Yeah,
Uh, but he put this like the '70s porn mustache
I
now,
know. It's
and like
great.
all I can see is the porn mustache. I can't even see him anymore. I can't take my eyes off it. It's like porn mustache, porn mustache. That's all I see.
But that makes it so much funnier.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm drawn to everything I see about him on Twitter. I'll be like Fetterman.
Yeah, yeah.
He
The new
draws me
book
in
is
every time.
called Reframe Your Brain, something that John Fetterman did unintentionally. Scott Adams, thank you so much for being here. We're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
My favorite part of this interview. Oh, what a question to ask. My favorite part was oh, what were we laughing at? That's such a tough
There was a
question.
lot.
Yeah, I think my favorite part. I'm going to give you the cheat answer because I was trained in media. When you're
Okay.
in media, they teach you to give the answer you want to give and ignore the question if you don't like the question.
Yes.
So what I like the best is that we're on the same wavelength of sense of humor. That if something's
Okay.
falling apart, but they haven't admitted they're falling apart yet, you can't
Yes.
get funnier than that. Right?
Yes.
If somebody is falling apart and they admit they're falling apart, well, I feel sympathy. But if
Yeah.
they don't admit it, oh, I'm there for you. I'm there for you.
You are welcome.